Hello and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching this news hour with the news. I'm Bina Abgatana. Thank you for joining us. Now, the news in full. Stay tuned. Finance Minister Ahmed Shideh, along with his delegation, held a fruitful discussion with his Chinese counterpart Liu Kun in Beijing on ways to further cement economic partnership between the two countries. Ahmed Shideh commended China's unwavering support to Ethiopia's fight against poverty and homegrown economic transformation. He emphasized that the ever-growing China-Africa cooperation in trade and investment is built on mutual respect, shared benefit, and policy independence. Li Kun, for his part, shared China's experience of how its large economy boomed quickly. He also elucidated that the tangible and incredible strategic economy lifted more than 800 million people from poverty in a short period of time. The Chinese finance minister reiterated that his office is committed to continue working more closely with Ethiopian Ministry of Finance to further enhancing the economic cooperation of the two countries. And Ugandan parliamentary delegation said the policy and the legal framework of Ethiopia on science and technology are very clear and focused. The delegation that paid visit for 5 days further said the policy and the legal framework of Ethiopia has helped the country to move it into milestone in science and technology and innovation. Daniel Kassan has more from ENA.
The Ugandan MP's delegation head, Florence Akiki, said the government of Ethiopia and its leadership has realized that technology and innovation will be the driving force of the country. She added that Ethiopia's multi-satellite tracking and data receiving ground station showed that the country has come a long way in the African continent. The station is receiving data from 5 different Earth observation satellites useful for various thematic applications.
We want to them, the scientists of Uganda, to partner with scientists from Ethiopia and share experiences, and even belong to the different organizations within the world that do particular activities in the different sciences, in the different technologies. So indeed, this visit is going to benefit Ugandans, and we are going to share with the relevant authorities so that we have that umbrella, and I just hope that in the future we are going to have an umbrella of the space science. We have the biotechnology, emerging institutions. They come together and talk about biotechnology. We have the property rights, because everything that is here actually affects all the African countries. And we thank Ethiopia for taking the lead.
According to her, Ethiopia has actually put technology on the higher agenda and built incredible infrastructures in the area.
One of the structures that really impressed us is the space, the satellite. Work is in progress, and you could see that actually government is injecting in a lot of resources. This is a very expensive venture, showing that the government is determined to ensure that information in terms of space is well captured. And it's not only, Ethiopia is not looking at itself alone, but is looking at Africa in general, because there are few ground satellites, infrastructure that have been built in Africa.
Bernard Odo Mutusa, another member of the delegation, said Ethiopia is progressing very well in science and technology.
Ethiopia is now creating a niche. Is creating a niche in ICT. If you look at the development of the satellite, you realize they are creating a niche. Not every country will have capacity and ability, both human resource and technological advancement, to build these massive satellites for their consumption. But now when Ethiopia creates a niche in this, it means that other countries may not have to establish theirs. They can actually work hand in hand with Ethiopia.
Ethiopia launched its multi-satellite tracking and data receiving ground station at the Entoto Observatory in 2021.
Another development, Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, has pledged to continue supporting people dependent on agriculture in Ethiopia and improving their livelihood. FAO country representative Faria Zumuddin said the organization has been working in terms of ensuring the livelihood of people affected by natural and man-made disasters in Ethiopia. Tegis Nessa has Enas file. Take a look.
Talking to Ethiopian news agency Food and Agriculture Organization FAO country director Farai Zumuddin said the organization has been working quite a lot in the past couple of years in ensuring the livelihood of farmers or their productive capacity in agriculture.
And we've been providing inputs, seeds for farmers to be able to plant, as well as fertilizer, and also some drugs for their animals, because we recognize that farmers, they not only plant crops, but they also have livestock. So to ensure that their livestock are healthy and they have access to food, especially in drought-affected areas, we've been providing quite a lot of livestock feed, as well as the necessary veterinary support that is required for the animals to be healthy.
Zumuddin further stated that the organization is also looking on what additional complementary support can be provided to ensure bottlenecks that inevitably arise in situations such as these are addressed. FAO is closely working with Ministry of Agriculture to find chain on specific areas of support, especially on issues around seed for the wheat program and toward what quality and affordable seed can be made available, she added. Elaborating on the activities of FAO, the country representative said the organization's first approach is to provide immediate response, for example, in drought-affected parts of the country.
It's important to respond immediately to prevent loss of livelihoods, but we also need to take a longer view in terms of how can farmers adapt to the situation and continue to be able to be productive in spite of the challenge.
As there are many pastoralists, feed have been provided to make sure that there's no total loss of animals and provide cash to enable farmers to buy input and meet their needs. The second approach, according to Zumuddin, is to take a long-term point of view, because drought is something that's not going to go away completely. So there will be a need to look at interventions such as developing farmers' ability to produce their own feed in areas where water is available, she elaborated. Thus, issues around water management are very important, and it's a long-term strategy to deal with change in climate that is not going away, unfortunately. The representative acknowledged the strong prioritization of agriculture that Ethiopia has shown, adding that one of the key issues is also to facilitate learning across different countries.
There are a lot of good practices that Ethiopia can share with other countries. Equally, Ethiopia can also learn from other countries. So one of the key things that is FAO that we would like to also do is to facilitate those learnings, so that in a South-South arrangement, countries are learning from each other and countries are adapting good practices from their neighbors.
There are a lot of opportunities to be explored in the agriculture sector. And FAO is ready to provide support not only to Ethiopia but also other countries around the world.
We are the gateway for all foreign direct investors. Perfectly having the peace will definitely help us and boost the potential of Ethiopia. Even during those conflict time, Ethiopia has a big potential. So majorly, more than $3.4 billion of investment has come last year. Kind of half cabinet will be at the board of Ethiopian Investment Commission. So this shows the commitment of government. So secondly is, the investor needs to know that majorly they have a question of repatriation of their profit. Actually, repatriation of their profit is allowed in our law. It's a very clear one. And the Ethiopian Investment Commission is ready to welcome you, whether you are local or foreign direct investors, to invest in Ethiopia. We believe that it's time to invest in our country. It's time to invest in Ethiopia. We are providing and making sure that we are doing the ease of doing business for the country, and majorly we are implementing the aftercare strategy.
Welcome back. You're still watching at this news hour now. Another news. Various scholars says Ethiopians can do what people think cannot be done when they are united, as demonstrated by the Battle of Adwa. In an exclusive interview with ENA, scholars said Ethiopians could become a good example of Africa once again if they follow their forefathers' strong unity in defying oppression. Haftam Shagre has ENA's file. Take a look.
The Battle of Adwa is a pressing factor for all black minorities as engine of Pan-Africanism movement in the globe. Talking to ENA, scholars said the victory of Adwa is also a motivation for the independence of many African countries, but is not well acknowledged by the West. Defeating the white aggression in the 19th century was unthinkable, but the Ethiopian people united themselves and were able to defeat the white aggression from Italy. According to the professor, unity and solidarity are the key instruments for all Ethiopians to defeat the Italian aggression in the past.
I think Adwa tell us that if Ethiopia unites, they can do what you think cannot be done. Defeating in the 19th century, defeating the Europeans was unthinkable. But Ethiopian people unite themselves and be able to defeat the Italians, the colonialists. So this cooperation should come in economic cooperation, should come in bringing in the country unity. So if we unite together and work together, there is nothing that we can not conquer. And we can defeat poverty, we can defeat underdevelopment, we can defeat the conflicts that we have. I think, let alone for other African countries, we haven't exploited the importance of Adwa victory. We should work together and understand how we managed to defeat the colonialists 100 years ago. And if we work that way, then we can defeat our poverty, we can defeat our underdevelopment, we can grow, we can be better, we can be a good example for Africa.
The president said that Addis Ababa University is working towards making sure that Adwa is truly an emblem of unity against oppressors, but the effort is not enough and a lot remains to be done.
I think Addis Ababa University has been working very hard. Addis Ababa is a symbol of unity for Ethiopia, and Addis Ababa University works for the unity in Ethiopia, and it has museums and documentations that shows the aftermath of the colonialization, and also all the histories of Adwa are documented in Addis Ababa University. And we have history department, we have various social science departments where we preach Pan-Africanism, and also that Adwa victory is an example. Addis Ababa University is working to that, but I don't think it is enough. We have to work much, but other universities should follow Addis Ababa.
Professor of History of Africa, the African Diaspora at University of Chichester, Hakim Abdi, for his part, said that many people throughout Africa and the diaspora know the battle and victory of Adwa because it was really a symbol and showcased what Africans can do. Before that time, there was the idea that Europeans were superior to Africa. The Battle of Adwa smashes this ideal myth of European superiority with an Ethiopian victory.
Before that time, there was the idea that Europeans were superior to Africans. The Battle of Adwa showed that with an Ethiopian victory, that this idea, this myth of European superiority had been smashed. It confirmed Ethiopia's independence, and therefore Ethiopia also stood as a symbol of African independence, of the possibilities of independence and the end of colonial rule throughout the African continent, as well as in the diaspora. So it's a very, very important victory. Should be commemorated everywhere, should be known about everywhere, and hopefully should unite Ethiopians.
The historians further noted that the victory of Adwa showed that when people are united, that all kinds of things are possible. Abdi underlined that the need for unity and maintaining the struggle for independence are some of the lessons that can be drawn from the symbolic victory of Adwa. Ethiopians across the nation and in the diaspora, as well as the black people across the globe, will commemorate the 127th of Adwa victory on March 9, 2023.
Every year on March 1st, Ethiopia and Africa mark the victory of the Battle of Adwa. The Battle of Adwa was a rocket booster and a launching pad for the inception of Pan-Africanism as well. To tell us more on this pertinent issue, I am here joined in the studio by my colleague Kidan Ashagar. A very warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Binyam.
So, speaking of the commemoration of the Battle of Adwa, and Ethiopia comes first and foremost in doing a lot of things, and now there has been several preparation undertaken for celebrating the 127th Adwa victory here in the capital and elsewhere in the world. So, what can you tell us about?
All right. Well, like you said, now Ethiopians across the nation and in the diaspora and many black people across the globe as well are preparing to commemorate the 127th victory, or the Adwa victory, on March 2nd of 2023, which is going to be on Thursday of this week, I believe. Now, a bit of a background on the Battle of Adwa is that it was fought in 1896 between the Ethiopian Empire and Italy in the northern part of Ethiopia near a town, in a town called Adwa, hence the name actually. And Emperor Menelik II and Empress Aitu led the war in person, traveling from the capital to Adwa. And what makes a distinctive feature of Adwa is the fact that the common folk of Ethiopia, farmers, merchants, people who just made up the Ethiopian community, kind of came out to fight to defend the sovereignty or independence of Ethiopia. So in present, people pay tribute to them, to the ancestors who have helped to preserve the independence and sovereignty of Ethiopia and pass on an independent country. Now, it's celebrated on the streets through parades and also telling of old tales. And this day is of significant importance because it kind of marks, the celebration of Ethiopian sovereignty. So it's a milestone and beyond that. And rightly so, because compared to other wars or wars of resistance that people of Ethiopia had to fight, the Battle of Adwa is a bit different in terms of its, its results were not short-lived, but instead they were surprisingly permanent. And Ethiopia's victory during that time, the Adwa victory, sent shockwaves through the world, you can say, and sort of turned the narrative of colonialism on its head, it is said. Now, it's believed to have initiated other freedom fighters across Africa, and it also kind of brought out a global resistance against colonialism, and also gave birth to the spirit of Pan-Africanism.
Yeah, speaking of Pan-Africanism, the success of, or the Battle of Adwa resonates beyond Ethiopia, and as you've said, Pan-Africa has given birth for its movement, and then particularly the this remarkable Battle Adwa. How has it been inspiring other African countries, and what can we Ethiopians really learn from it? And then speaking of also the generation, there is a lot of things that we can possibly inculcate.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the Battle of Adwa runs through the canals of the history of not only Ethiopia, but many African countries, like you said, against, the oppression or the, the control of a European colonial power, which remains instilled not only in present-day Ethiopians or the youth of Ethiopia, but also in different African countries and the youth. It's raised as a point, as a trailblazer in terms of the fight of black communities, not only in Africa as well, in different parts of the world, as a fight against the oppression and the narratives of colonialism and now present-day neo-colonialism that I believe in the previous news item sort of, instilled the idea that Europe was somehow superior to the African continent. So the victory depicted the defiance and pride of Ethiopians, and it was an attitude that was inherited eventually by the national liberation movements across Africa. So it helped in a way to fight against colonialism and set many African countries free from that in the 1960s, as we all know. Now, the phenomenon of Adwa is a complex nexus of different stories, which one might say have not yet really been explored, but it does not only reflect its time, but also it transcends it, and it talks about even present-day, modern-day Africa and what we stand to achieve if black communities come united. Because what Adwa showed us is common people, common black people coming together, fighting united, and just showing unity can fight against the big blocks of European powers.
And again, in this victory, we still have to remember the major role that had been played by, women, heroines, who have really helped for the success of the victory. What do you have on that?
Yeah, like I said earlier, it was Emperor Menelik II and also Empress Aitu who led the army. And with that time, Empress Aitu is actually deemed as it's deemed as a very notable military strategist. And also one thing that's mentioned in history is the Empress also played a very important part in making sure that the other side, or the Italian army's water supplies, were very limited. So very important strategy on her part. The diplomacy of Menelik II, very commendable. But Empress Aitu's role is also something that history books really have mentioned and
interesting. This might be my last question. Sure. As we've been always talking about the victory of Adwa, which has been a binding factor for Ethiopians particularly, there are also things that we have to take into consideration, especially those during that time they have fought with the gallant approach, and then they have recorded what is happening, and that's why we are commemorating it. But speaking of this generation, what can we really learn in it? What should be the kind of fight that we have to register as we are wishing to see Ethiopia developing forward?
All right, so with that, actually, I'm going to take us back to the previous year of Ethiopia celebrating Adwa. And during that time, as many might be well aware, Ethiopia was going through a conflict. But now we have a peace accord, so we're celebrating it at a time of peace. But what President Sahle-Work Zewde at that time actually talked about was Ethiopians, or black communities standing together, can achieve a lot. And she called on many Ethiopians to stand together and strive for national peace and development, underlining that nothing will stop us if we stand together, adding that nothing can stop a black force or a black community standing together against a common enemy. Now, back then it was the division between different forces of Ethiopia. We're not going to go back there because we have a peace accord, like I said, but now she called upon the Ethiopian youth or Ethiopian citizens in present time to come together and repeat the victory of Adwa, not only in war, but also in other areas of development, of peace, tolerance, diversity, and other factors.
Any points on
I'll
your hands?
pass that on.
All right, Kidana Baina, thank you so much for the brief explanation that you have provided on the victory of Adwa. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
It was difficult to understand why Ethiopia didn't have a stock market. We scoured the world. For example, an economy of Ethiopia's size, but close to $130 billion, that doesn't have a stock market anywhere in the world, you can't find. So these are like the 5 pillars. Now, within each one of them, there are subsectors, right? So when we talk about manufacturing, Ethiopia has excellent opportunity to attract labor-intensive manufacturing, clothing, shoes, that kind of stuff. One of the reasons I always focus on this is because labor-intensive industries that used to go to China, simple word, Ethiopia is open for business. I mean, I think that's the best way to just, if we were to give it a tagline, open for business, right? But I will answer yours specific. So, one of the most exciting reforms, what I call a mega reform, that has happened in the last 2 years in the economic sector, is telecoms.